Hey travelers, Mag and I here on day 329 of our trip around the United States. This morning, we're getting things started off in front of a Blockbuster here in Bend, Oregon. Wait, did I say a Blockbuster? Let me correct that. I meant the Blockbuster. As of 2018, this is the only Blockbuster left to be found anywhere in the country. So, this is a little bit of a piece of history right here that we get to start our morning off, and I gotta be honest with you, I'm pretty excited about it. From here in Bend, we're gonna be making our way south pretty much all day long. We're gonna have 330 miles to cover today as we come from Bend, drop our way all the way down through Crater Lake, come in through Sprague River, and then swing around and finally bring our day to an end in Klamath Falls. Even if we get to Klamath Falls ahead of schedule, which I don't see happening, we're gonna be stopping there because we will be spending all day tomorrow in Klamath Falls. I don't think we're gonna get there ahead of schedule though, because today's list is jam-packed with targets. There's a ton of earth caches, a ton of virtuals, and a ton of really interesting geocaches along this stretch of road. There's no way we're gonna have time to visit it all. We're gonna be making massive cuts all through the day to get some of that time back in our pocket and still get some of the targets we want to. So while I don't know exactly what it is we're gonna get to find today, I know we're gonna get to see a lot of amazing stuff as we make our way south through the state, starting right here with this classic Blockbuster. So let's see what the rest of the day has in store for us. Come on, let's go. Here in Bend, we are all too excited to discover a blast from the past. The last Blockbuster video still standing. And yes, against all odds, this lone survivor carries on with more than 1,000 titles available for rent and more than 4,000 members who regularly rent movies at the location, keeping it in business. Out of Bend, we head south along the highway toward the Newberry National Volcanic Monument. It includes 54,000 acres of lakes and lava features to be explored. Our first plan of the day didn't really work out all that well. We stopped in and visited the Newberry National Volcanic Monument. Unfortunately, our timing wasn't all that great and we couldn't access the top by vehicle. It was gonna be probably over a mile to drive our way up the spiral to get there. And that wasn't gonna work for either Ai-chan and I. So we skipped the virtuals and earth caches there, and instead we're taking a nice little morning walk out to find a relatively new letterbox and move on with our targets. There's plenty of virtuals ahead. I'm a big fan of letterboxes that encourage geocachers to orienteer as in the true letterbox style. From the corner of this cabin, left over from yesteryear, Ai-chan and I get our bearing and proceed for 49 paces until we happen across the letterbox we seek. You know, sometimes you wake up, you start the day, and you think to yourself, today I am unstoppable. I can do anything. I can find anything. Well, today's not one of those days. Pretty much everything that we've gone after that was more complicated than a 1.5, 2 difficulty, we haven't been able to find. So for now, I've just decided to stick to ammo cans in the woods because if I can't find this, I should probably quit. And I'm not gonna do that. We are almost there. So we continue down the road, already discounting the micros because of the County Challenge final, and now skipping past the smalls because of my inability to find them. These ammo cans though, these are where it's at. It still may take me a while to track them down, but at least I do. Maybe just one more regular sized find to help us continue our warm up for the day before we finally start to try something more complex. When we spot an adventure lab at the Collier State Park Logging Museum, we make an immediate decision to slide in to complete it. Ironically though, as soon as we get here, we have 0 signal on our phones and are unable to pull up the Adventure Lab app. That's okay though, because Adventure Lab or not, Geocache or not, this is a place well worth checking out. Established in 1945, this museum grew out of 146 acres donated by brothers Alfred and Andrew of the Collier family. The museum, as it stands today, had been the vision of the brothers since step 1. Their family's business had left them in the possession of quite a bit of antique logging equipment, which they began to donate in 1947. Their example inspired many others to do exactly the same thing, with donations of antique farming equipment rolling in over the next several decades. And their generosity continued over the many years to follow, with Alfred Collier continuing to source new pieces of equipment for the museum all the way up until his death in 1988. The continued generosity of its many donors has allowed the museum to display well over 80 years worth of logging history in one of the largest logging equipment collections anywhere in the country. There are two main paths to follow in the exploration of the museum grounds: the Cut Move Mill Trail and the Logging Evolution Trail. Both trails begin at the cookhouse, just on the edge of the parking area, and they each feature, quite literally, tons of logging equipment on display. On the Cut Move Mill Trail, visitors learn about the techniques and equipment that logging crews have employed during the last 2 centuries. A collection of hand tools demonstrate how loggers were able to bring down trees in the early days with tools like axes and long cross-cut saws before the advent of things like gas-powered chainsaws. Once those logs hit the ground, they had to have a way to move them. High wheels, oxen, horses, and later, combustion tractors transported these large pieces of wood to the mill where they could be cut into viable lumber pieces. On the Logging Evolution Trail, we see the progression of each of these transportation methods over time. Horse and oxen saw the longest running use, all the way until the early 1900s when they began to be replaced by steam. By comparison, steam had a very limited lifespan, only seeing a few decades of usage before it was replaced by internal combustion engines, which are still in use today. One of the pieces I was most impressed by was the twin-cylinder, coreless steam engine known as the Stout Avner. This beast powered the Long Bell Lumber Company for nearly 50 years of operations.
I remember someone once posing the question, are there more doors or are there more wheels in the world? And apparently it was the cause for some great debate. The answer seems kind of obvious to me. And there's got to be more wheels. You open up a door and inside that mechanism there may be 6, 7, 8 wheels making that thing go. Just look around this shop, for instance. How many wheels do you see right around me?
In the small town of Sprague River, which only boasts a population of about 80 residents total, we hop onto the OC&E Woods Line State Trail. Built as a rail line between Klamath Falls to Thompson Reservoir in 1917, this 105-mile trail stretches through the communities of Aleen, Sprague River, Derry, Beatty, and Bly. The rail line supported logging operations in the area for the better part of 60 years between the 1920s and the 1980s. During the peak of its operations, more than 35,000 loads of lumber would move its way up and down this trail each year. With time, all things must change though, and with the decline of logging operations, these rails were converted to trails in the 1990s.
This extension out here between Sprague River and Derry is perfect because it allows us to get 2 pages with easy access. The caches here along Sprague River though actually follow the river on this beautiful trail which has a ton of geocaches, but you have to park and walk. Ai-chan wasn't too excited about waking up from her nap to come join me, but that's alright. We'll just go at her pace and walk out maybe 1,000 feet, 1,500, get a few of these things, and then head back to the car. Got to get some exercise for the day before we wrap things up, right?
This late into the day, I finally felt like I had warmed up enough to take on a geocache container that was smaller than a regular. Ai-chan and I headed down the trail together at a slow, plodding pace, taking the time to stop for each geocache that was listed along the way and try our hand at it. We of course enjoyed each geocache that we were able to stamp our names onto the logbook for, but the real treasure here was just getting to hike out in the woods together. Reaching the end of our route for the day, we come into the city of Klamath Falls, the county seat of Klamath County with a population of about 22,000 people. At the time of its founding by George Nurse in 1867, it was named Linkville, after the Link River where the falls were located. The current name for the city didn't come into effect until 1893, as a variation of the word used by Native Americans to refer to the region. Unsurprisingly, based on what we've already learned earlier today, the history of Klamath Falls is deeply rooted in the railroad. This part of Oregon was far too remote for most settlers to even consider until the arrival of the Southern Pacific Railroad in 1909. The sudden accessibility of this region enabled it to become the fastest growing city anywhere in the state. While that rapid growth came to a screeching halt in 1929 with the onset of the Great Depression, it still remains a destination city for many. To wrap things up in style, we pay a visit to the Klamath Falls Veterans Memorial Park, established in 2007. This memorial park honors all those who have served and are currently serving in the U.S. Armed Forces, Coast Guard, and yes, the wartime merchant marines as well. At the time of its dedication, this beautiful park facing out over the lake featured a covered pavilion, flagpoles, red, white, and blue fiber optics over the concrete walkways, plaques representing each branch of the military, and many monuments depicting various wars throughout our history. Later came the paver bricks, which feature the names of veterans who have served. The purchasing of these bricks, which we have seen in many veterans memorials across many cities, will hopefully help to keep this park beautiful for generations to come.
And so ends another day spent out here enjoying the natural beauty of Oregon. We began our day in Bend at the last Blockbuster, the only one still in existence, and I gotta admit, I was pretty excited about it. I didn't realize that's what I was gonna come up across with that virtual, and it also made me feel quite old at the same time, because I remember not too long ago when Blockbuster and Hollywood Video were the places to go, and that doesn't feel like ancient history to me. Anyway, neither here nor there. From Bend, we began making our way south pretty much all day long. Our plans didn't go exactly as we had thought they would, which helped our target list to parse down to what we needed anyway. We couldn't get out to the volcanic site, our hours were just a little off the mark for that, and Crater Lake's roads were still closed because we were here earlier in the season that I'd meant us to be. So between cutting those two places off of our list, we pretty much put ourselves right back on time to come through Derry and into Klamath Falls to end our day. We're supposed to be taking an admin day tomorrow, and during that time we'd be exploring the city. But since we had enough time to do that today and still have some time on our side, we're actually going to get done some of those admin tasks we need to do tomorrow, like laundry because we're almost out of clean clothes, and a couple other things that we haven't had time for since we left Truax Outdoors Place. Sitting here on the southern edge of Oregon, we're going to drop down into California for the next couple of days, but we're not quite done with Oregon yet. We'll be finishing off the counties and pages along the coast before we come back to California for our grand finale. Thank you guys for continuing to join us on our tour on the road. Like this video, subscribe, stay tuned for updates, and we'll see you out on the trails.